Good afternoon and welcome to Foreign Guy in the Barangay. I'm speaking to you from Lawag and we are almost at the end of our 2-week holiday in the Philippines, and it's been fantastic. When we came in 2023 it was cloudy and grey, rainy and windy, but this time we've had nothing but sunshine all the way. I can't actually remember it raining, no matter where we were. I think nothing but oil, nothing in Manila, which was hot, warm and sunny, beautiful, and nothing so far in Lawagan. We have one cloud over there, so I don't think there'll be much happening. Sorry about the specs. These specs are make me look like Ronnie Barker. Not a lot needed to make me look like Ronnie Barker, but all the same. Right, I'll probably cut that out anyway. So, what I'm going to do today is I'm going to make a video of our trip to the Philippines, which was not uneventful, and our first couple of days in Manila. So, I've prepared a script here. I'll put up with my finger. There we go. Travelling is stressful. Travelling in economy class is something else. And travelling as a fatty, I think the latest term is plus size, is a new kind of hell. Had it been any worse, I'd have done it dressed in an orange jumpsuit with Guantanamo written on the back. We travelled from Somerset in England, where the daytime temperature was a balmy 3 degrees C, towards Manila, where the expected temperature was 31 degrees C, to Heathrow by coach. Upon arrival, without bothering to check the diligently prepared paperwork, we marched off confidently to Terminal 3. And there, having checked the diligently prepared paperwork, we marched off a little less cockily back from there to Terminal 2. I, in anticipation of our forthcoming holiday, had managed to lose 10 kilos. My underpants, however, remained the same size. And so, throughout our march through the corridors and along the travelators of Heathrow International Airport, it was punctuated by me having to retrieve my undies from the lower slope of my buttocks, where they gathered over the previous 50 metres, and haul them back up to my waist from whence they'd fallen. In some form of sartorial disarray, we then arrived at Terminal 2 to find that we were unable to check in our vast array of suitcases for another 3 hours. And so, in true British style, we went to the pub, where they took my underpants down in a whole new and interesting manner. 2 drinks, £16.70. Thank you. Neither drink was a bottle of Chateau Neuf de Pape, and having deducted that 3 hours in an airport pub would turn out to be around £150, which was too rich for our tastes, we drank up, we stood up, and we walked up to the check-in queue. Eventually, we managed to persuade the check-in staff to take the suitcases off our hands. Turkish Airlines have been very generous in allowing us 46 kilos each of luggage, which my wife had taken as a personal challenge. She, my beautiful wife, is Filipino. Filipinos have something known as Filipino pride, and it has nothing to do with rainbows or dressing up as a ballerina while still sporting a full moustache. Filipino pride translates as pasalubong, and pasalubong translates as bringing back a little present for, it seems, at least to me, every living soul in the Philippines, all crammed into our suitcases, not the Filipinos, the presents for them, and transported 8,000 miles so that it may be consumed, admired, or put aside with feigned indifference. And the giver of all this generosity will feel Filipino pride at providing presents. So it all went into the hold of the plane to remain unseen by us until Manila. We fortunately got to sit above the luggage with the rest of the passengers to Istanbul, with a 23-inch wide me crammed into a 19-inch wide seat, with my nose almost touching the seat in front of me. 4 hours of this was tremendous preparation for deplaning and being told that our connecting flight was leaving from gate 17, D17. We had just over 40 minutes and gate D17 was at least a mile away. Istanbul airport is very grand. It bridges 2 different continents apparently, 2 different time zones and 3 different dimensions. It's apparently visible from nearby galaxies, probably. As I continued to waddle along its endless corridors, grimly hanging onto my errant undies and barely hanging onto my sanity, I contemplated Turkey's flagship airport. Because if truth be known, Turkey's airport is far, far, far too grand for the number of flights that pass through it. It seems that despite the constant bombardment of apocalyptic prophecies of climate doom in the world in which we live, air travel will become more commonplace and justify the expense on Istanbul airport. Maybe because we shall all transition into eating mealworms and crickets instead of flatulent beef cattle, and so vanity projects such as this will become more commonplace and environmentally acceptable. In any event, we arrived at gate D17 with minutes to spare. I understand the term hot, sweaty mess better than ever before. Luckily for me, the hot and sweaty part of it helped lubricate me for the forced squeezing of my buttocks into my new seat, where I sat quietly praying to God, Allah, Buddha and Spider-Man for the cabin crew to turn on the air conditioning, please. And they did. And I settled in, or rather unsettled in, for the next 10 hours for our flight to Manila, which was due to land around 10:20 p.m. Well, clearly the pilot knew a shortcut because we actually landed half an hour early. A mere hour and a half later, we had passed through immigration, all of the queues to get into the country, retrieved our haul of Pasadubong-filled cases and hot-footed it outside to meet up with the driver who was going to extort 1,000 pesos for a 450 peso taxi fare. But first to meet up with a family friend who would send up some of the suitcases into the north of the Philippines, which is where we are now, on a coach, as other airlines weren't so dementedly generous with their luggage allowance. We were stood at Bay 13, the driver was at Gate 13, and the family friend was still at home. 1 hour of repairing breakdowns in communication later, everybody had finally met. Everything had been reunited with where it was supposed to go, and we were ready to go. We marched off to the car park, me clinging onto a trolley full of suitcases with one hand, and of course my runaway underpants with the other. We loaded the car. We got in the car. I passed my laptop bag through to my wife, who was sitting in the back of the car, which was when I noticed my wallet was missing. The large black wallet containing my phone, the passports, £600 in sterling and 14,000 pesos. I found this mildly irritating, as you might imagine, and after 15 minutes of using language that guarantees that I will now spend eternity being prodded with red-hot pitchforks, it turned up. In the dark, it, being black, it took the opportunity to fall, ninja-like, out of my laptop bag and find the darkest spot in the footwell. So it was black on black on black, but it turned up. Thanks be to Spider-Man. And so, at huge expense, we got to Makati, to the Gramercy residences. Rather frazzled, but there was a promise of a bed upstairs, where I would be able to lie down in air-conditioned splendour horizontally, which is always a top choice when the alternative choice has been to be squashed into a 19-inch wide airplane seat when you are 23 inches wide. The condo we had booked had more than a whiff of James Bond about it. As you can probably imagine, James Bond is someone I've often been mistaken for. The Gramercy is a 73-storey high building with a pool open to the elements on the 36th floor. A pool overlooking the city lights of Manila. on the 36th floor. We'd booked a condo on the 51st floor, and it did not disappoint, because as we arrived, very tired, late into the night, we were greeted with this. Now our plan was to get into the condo, throw the suitcases on the bed and go out to the filling station for a late supper. But we got into the condo, threw ourselves onto the bed and fell asleep. When we awoke, filled with the dizzy joys of jet lag and exhaustion, we did venture out to the filling station, and as always, it didn't disappoint. As themed restaurants go, the filling station is nothing short of world class. It's decked from floor to ceiling, including the ceiling, in kitsch, pop art and memorabilia from 1950s and 1960s Americana, and it's fantastic. Cute little Filipino waitresses and busboys tend to your needs with a great menu filled with classic diner dishes and Filipino favourites. The music blares away with rock and roll of the era, and the whole place has a truly magical vibe. It's open 24 hours a day, and if you're ever in Manila, you will be crazy to miss this. I should mention that it was my birthday, and so the waiters and waitresses, at the request of my wife, gathered around and sang happy birthday to me, and my embarrassment proved to be a real delight for Melody. Still feeling the effects of the arduous journey, being unused to the heat, but by thankfully now wearing smaller undies, we retired, well I was at least, we retired to the condo and had a siesta. And all through the long autumn and winter, I had meticulously planned what we would do each day, including which of my cameras would be needed and the shots I wanted to try. We'd been in Manila for 12 hours and I was 24 hours behind schedule. Well, the tropics, where nothing gets done in a hurry, and schedules, well, they just don't happen. Sometimes you have to fight against your better nature and just go with the flow. So we had a nap. Luckily, we woke up while it was still my birthday, because we were meeting up with Kuya Will and his family to both celebrate my birthday and thank him for his invaluable assistance in buying the land we bought in Bohol, more of which to follow in another video. We went to Vikings Buffet, where if it's your birthday, and it was mine, and you have at least one friend who will pay for themselves, you can help yourself to the buffet free of charge. Luckily for me, although I have no friends, I do have a wife, and she could afford to pay for her meal, so I got mine without having to pay a dime, peso, a dollar, a pound, whatever. Luckily for Vikings Buffet, I was still fairly full of filling station ham and eggs, so they got off lightly. Everyone else had their fill, and we waddled off into the night after the waiters and waitresses sang happy birthday to me once again. We woke up at dawn, as was becoming a regular thing in the condo, to be greeted with a wonderful sunrise over the Pasig River. Now Manila is undergoing a huge change and becoming much more tourist friendly rather than the teeming, crowded, boiling hot city filled with slums and pollution of the late 20th century, where all advice was, give it a miss. Things were so bad that the river that you see in the sunrise photo was declared ecologically dead. Nothing was swimming in it apart from rats. Squatter houses hung over the water, and all manner of waste flowed through pipes, tubes, sewers and gutters and discharged directly into the river. Pollution and trash, all tangled up with water hyacinth and all slowly decaying and sinking to the riverbed, was causing an ecological disaster in the heart of the city and making the river a no-go area and a visible display of the failings of governmental authorities. During the 1990s, however, things finally reached a crisis point, and the government and the people achieved the impossible, the unthinkable, and came together to effect change. The river was cleared, dredged, tidied up, cleaned. Polluters were prevented from discharging their toxic waste directly into the river. The squatters were moved on to better, more sanitary housing, and now a promenade is being constructed along the 26 kilometres between the sea and Laguna on both sides. And so far, a 500-metre stretch of the river close to the old post office building has been constructed as an example of what the architects and designers envisage, and it's been declared a great success. Eventually, with enough interest and funding on both sides of the river, the promenade will provide leisure for the masses second to none on a global scale. I can't help but think that environmentalists would be better targeting and using their energies towards this sort of thing. It will form a highly visible portion of a grand plan to improve the infrastructure of Manila. The comparison between 1990s and today could not be more stark. And that's not all. The following are all underway, all at the same time. Manila is changing with every passing day. An overground railway, a complete underground railway system, expressways running north to south and eastwards from Manila Bay, a completely new international airport and all the transport links that service it, a brand new city next to Clark Airport in the north, reclamation projects in Manila Bay to include the man-made islands, which will support a smart city with internet-ready everything. Manila aims to set itself at the crossroads of international trade for the 21st century, able to compete with any of the Southeast Asian cities, emulating the success of Singapore and with the aim of surpassing it. You might imagine that a thoughtful soul such as I contemplated all this over a morning coffee as I looked out over the city at sunrise. But in truth, I was swinging cameras about on the end of selfie sticks. I'm on holiday. I'll leave all that thinking to the others, and they seem to be doing a great job of it. We were intending to admire the river from up close on the ferry, but it was already Sunday and the ferry doesn't run on a Sunday, and so we got a grab to Binondo to visit the world's oldest Chinatown. There is also a very large church in Binondo, and as we arrived it was filled with the faithful for Sunday Mass. Within 15 minutes of our arrival, however, the church emptied out onto the street and we were washed along on a tide of humanity, all desperately seeking their post-Mass treat. What was intended to be a quiet Sunday morning stroll around Chinatown quickly turned into a melee, with hundreds of people swarming the hoopia shops and cafes in the vicinity of the Trinity. We retreated to a traffic island which had no hoopia, and so we, the hoopia-less wanderers, managed to take a few shots of us standing beside varying bits of vaguely Chinese street furniture. We jumped in a grab cab and skedaddled in the direction of a certain 51st floor haven where we stared out over the city. The frenetic pace, the jostling and bustle of this city can take some getting used to. But it's that vibrancy that I find so attractive, and the constant crackle of energy that makes me believe in this city and its future. But it isn't the grandiose plans of the city's elders and politicians that give me that belief. It's the people. It's their spirit. And the spirit of Manila is alive and kicking. It has an entrepreneurial pulse that keeps going 24 hours a day while the population hustle for their living. It's these same people that, for me, assure that it has a bright future. If God or Spider-Man permits, I will keep returning to this city to keep checking its pulse and keep taking delight in the energy of the place. Manila is one of the world's great cities, a mega city as densely populated as anywhere on earth, filled with abundant happiness. I hope this spirit continues long into the future. Thanks for listening. Take care of yourselves. Bye bye.